What you will not find in this book are tax code citations, regulations, or references to court cases. If you want those, you can get a copy of the Internal Revenue Service IRS tax code and the thousands of pages of its related regulations. Our goal was to write a tax strategy book that would not put you to sleep. When we teach tax classes for investors all over the United States, the most common and consistent feedback we receive is that we make our presentations easy for the average investor to understand. To break away from the usual boring tax book, we set out to write a tax book in plain English instead of in tax code. What you will find in this book. In this book, you will learn about everyday investors who make small changes that have a dramatic impact on their taxes and finances. You will hear real stories of clients we've worked with and the actions they have taken to supercharge their wealth building. Now, let us warn you, it is not all pretty. You will laugh, you will sigh, and you may even cry at some of the painful mistakes that cost people lots and lots of money. Why? Because these are real-life stories, and real life is not always magic fairy dust and happy endings. But within every story lies a lesson or strategy that may help you reduce your tax burden and keep more of your money. Amanda, growing up as the landlord's grandchild. Amanda's grandparents emigrated from Taiwan to the United States in the 1970s. They settled in Las Vegas and bought some land and rental properties, and by some we mean roughly 40 condo units. Amanda and her parents arrived in the United States a few years later, and boy did Amanda have fun living there. At that point, Amanda was in the second grade, and she started school in the middle of December, which was great. Between Santa Claus, reindeer, and candy canes, Amanda's first 2 weeks of school were heavenly. The other thing Amanda loved about her new home in the United States was that she was living with a lot of people. To say it was a large family in a small space would be an understatement. In their single 3-bedroom condo resided Amanda, her mom and dad, her grandparents, and her uncle and cousin. For Amanda, living there was great. One of her favorite things she and her cousin did while growing up was help clean the rental units after tenants moved out. Amanda would always be so excited when tenants moved out because she knew that soon she would get to sweep the floors and paint the walls. She thought growing up in the condo complex was wonderful. There was something special about being the landlord's grandkid. There was always something to do, and everyone was nicer to her, or at least it seemed that way. But being the landlord's grandkid was not all fun and games. Amanda also learned some things about real estate investing that were not so pleasant. For example, sometimes you can have bad tenants, ones who don't pay, and then move out in the dark of night, taking everything with them. And sometimes you get the complainers, people who call you every other day asking you to fix one thing or another. So for these reasons, Amanda never thought she would invest in real estate herself when she grew up. It was more of a headache than it was worth. Not until many years later, when Amanda was working as a CPA in corporate America, did she finally learn that real estate is one of the best-kept secrets to wealth building. Matt, growing up as the doctor's child. Matt also grew up in a large family. Matt's parents divorced when he was young, so he and his brother were used to splitting time between their parents and step-parents. Matt's stepfather was a pediatrician, and his mom worked both morning and night shifts as a nurse, so she could spend more time with the boys. Matt recalls that when he was growing up, people would always talk about how wonderful it would be if Matt became a doctor like his stepfather Jerry. Matt was great with little kids, and he excelled in math and science at school. It seemed like a great plan for him to get into the medical field. That is, until he and his family learned of his fear of blood and needles. Growing up with parents and step-parents who all worked full-time as professionals, Matt was brought up to be conservative with his finances. His parents taught him the value of $1 and the importance of saving money for a rainy day. Matt recalls having very little exposure to ideas of how to invest and grow money. The only recollection he has from his childhood of what an investment property could do for you is actually pretty horrific. You see, in the 70s and 80s, the tax code was somewhat different from how it is today. Some of the loopholes still exist, just in a different form. Back then, many doctors would invest in certain real estate partnerships in hopes of taking large tax deductions and striking it rich at the same time. Financial regulations were much more lax, and many investors lost significant amounts of money in these partnership investments that went very bad very quickly. As you may have guessed, Matt's stepfather was one such doctor.